you. I admire your work from afar. It's great to properly meet you.
Likewise.
I love it when people come together on the show and just meet and connect, and we're all good friends.
Well, I appreciate that, Ian. I mean, there's so many people like I only see on Facebook, and I finally get a chance to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's beautiful. That's one of people give the internet a lot of crap for a lot of reasons. Some of them good, but not all of them good. These connections are beautiful, and we are live. I think we're live.
Yes,
sounds like feels right.
Are you saying that the Venom sequel is bringing us all together? So maybe that's the one good thing about this movie.
We have come together to talk about the Venom sequel. I don't know if that brought us together or was me saying, hey, there's a comic book movie out. Let's talk about it. But we are Earth's Mightiest Critics here once again. I should say that with a bit more enthusiasm, but I think the overall, the vibe of this film. What's that, Annie?
You sound very defeated by us all being here.
It's not. It's the subject matter.
Again, it's us.
But here's the problem. If you weren't watching the What If episode that we just did before this, we kind of crushed your soul. We kind of you were fighting things off. You were trying to hold on to the life preserver, and it was you were like Indiana Jones in Last Crusade. You were watching.
I'm like Indiana Jones right now, where I'm Harrison Ford and I'm 75 and I can't tell left from right.
Wow.
I love him. I love him. I'm kidding. Maybe.
Hold on. I'm going to switch out my ball here. I got to get comfortable. There you go. That's better.
Meanwhile.
Yeah. No, you're talking about 75-year-old man problems. I felt like I needed a donut for my chair. But no. So, we are here to talk about Venom, Let There Be Carnage, coming hot off the tails of our series finale of What If. We talked about What If. So I'm very excited to introduce myself. See, I'm getting the enthusiasm back. The coffee helps.
Talking about himself too seems to enthusiasm as well.
Allow myself to introduce myself. I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. I am joined once again by Elliot Serrano of Shaken Not Heard podcast, Annie Banks of Chuckload of Comics and Giant Freaking Robot, and that guy who likes BVS, Donna of Justice. No, it's just Donna Justice. I like the Donna of Justice. Annie, I think you might have missed that in joke because that was earlier in last episode. But yeah, every time I say Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, it runs together in my head to create this mythical new member of the Justice League, Donna Justice. So yeah. So now we have Mark, also the Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room podcast.
That was called the callback, folks. If you didn't, again, you had to see the last episode. That's a callback.
Yeah,
right. Sorry, we're what ifing this Venom review, but it's kind of a special night because 3 out of the 4 of us have seen Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and one of us has not, and that would
we shouldn't say which one it was. We should let people guess who they thought didn't see it.
Cast your votes now. Text or call in. We'll have people standing by the phones.
I'm sitting by my phone, but no one's going to call. But no, that's actually an interesting challenge. At the end, we can see who was able to talk the most knowledgeably about a movie they haven't seen. rampant speculation. I'm just going to out you right now, Elliot. It's you.
I did announce it last week. Right? Yeah. Remember, you guys asked me, "Do you want to be in on the Venom talk?" And I said, "I'm not going to see the movie. I'm not." And
you're not missing much, man.
But here's the thing: David said he was going to see the movie, and he had a change of heart. You could have said, "I'm not going to see that," but after the movie opened to gangbusters, and there's all these think pieces about how Venom is saving the box office along with James Bond. They're bringing movies back somehow. I thought maybe you're like, "Oh, I got to check this out. Maybe it really is going to save movies and restore my faith in director Andy Serkis." No,
don't get me wrong. I think Andy Serkis is a great director.
From both movies you've seen of his?
I'm sorry?
From both movies you've seen of his?
Well, of his one movie that I've seen. The one thing, though, is I would say I just don't have faith in Venom fans. I mean, the Venom fans are like the same ones who talked about how the Joker movie was the greatest thing ever, and they were getting out there going, "Oh, this is,
Are you determined to crush Mark's spirit?
No, I didn't. No, I'm with him because I'm a huge fan of fucking Taxi. Pardon my.
Wait a minute. Sorry. Why is Andy Serkis going to direct Animal Farm? That's very Orwellian of him. I don't like that.
Probably because it's all live. It's mocap. No, let me say when it comes, I am a DC shirt.
I want to be the fascist pig.
I hear they're doing casting, so you never know.
Hey, I know a former president that could probably audition. But...
There you go.
Leave Jimmy Carter alone. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so
just a quick thing with the Joker. I'm actually with a lot of people, the younger YouTube reviewiverse, mad props and respects to those out there that are far younger that do the YouTube reviews, thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. And I'm like, that's because you didn't watch a movie past 1999, because if you would have watched Taxi Driver for sure, and that, I'm not saying the movie was necessarily bad for that. It's just when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, I get what they're doing with this. And then everybody out of universe, in the YouTube reviewiverse was like exploding, like, oh my God, this is Joker awesome. I'm like, go back to 1976. Watch Taxi Driver. But I digress. Sorry. I just
I mean, I think that's a very valid point. And a lot of that could probably be said for people who are raving about Venom, although I don't know if all of this hype around Venom is people actually loving on it or just the fact that they went to see it out of curiosity. It's got a big opening weekend and it's going to like disappear by next weekend. But Elliot, I'm sorry, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, I was just saying, to be fair, I mean, Todd Phillips did a really good job with Joker. I mean, even if he was like kind of like pulling in the Taxi Driver vibe into the DCU, I give him credit for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So, and in the movie, I mean, there were even some scenes in Joker that I thought, wow, that works really well. Fine. Yeah. And same with, when you talk about something like with Venom, I'll say my problem with the Venom movies is that I see Spawn. I keep thinking, oh, I remember when that was a Spawn movie. So to me, there's nothing wholly original about it. Whereas the like, say, back to making the comparison, Joker, it's like Todd Phillips said, hey, you know what? Yeah, let's do Taxi Driver in the DC universe and make it work here. Whereas with Marvel, and I made this comparison, this quick before. It's like the Sony folks just don't seem to have the imagination for it. You let them do their own movie, okay, on their own. They give you Morbius with Jared Leto, which is, wow, look at that. 2 winning combinations, right?
We haven't seen it yet.
We have to wait until February. We have to.
That's when it's coming out?
I think so.
Oh, my God. All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Ellie.
Next time, please.
And then they give us Amazing Spider-Man, where they try to introduce the entire Sinister Six, like in one movie. Ugh. And you're like, come on, guys. You can't. They have the ingredients missing there. So while I'm sure there was some entertainment value in Venom, Let There Be Carnage, okay, I don't really think it approached. I don't even think it approached. I'm sorry. I don't even think it approached Thor: The Dark World level of quality for me. And Thor: The Dark World isn't that great a movie. And
it's an excellent movie.
Oh,
you
God.
just don't like mythology. You just don't like mythology. It's a great movie. It's a fantastic movie even, but you're just so spoiled by the report of Marvel and their incessant demand of having high action before you could actually process a thought.
Listen.
Oh God! Okay. Here we go.
We started off with mutual admiration, and now you guys are never going to talk to each other again.
Yeah, no. Well, again, I'm a huge fan of Annie's. I think she's wonderful. I'm a big fan. I've been cyber stalking her for some time now, and so I'm surprised that restraining orders don't apply to.
I'll file them tomorrow.
Online trash, right? Thor: The Dark World had Chris Eccleston, who I also think is the greatest thing, and wasted him. Wasted him as an actor.
Yeah. So let's rewind the tape on Thor: The Dark World, because I've never got an answer to this question. Okay, the villain is a race of elves who are pissed off because they just want everything to be quiet so they can go back to sleep. You're telling me there's not a dark corner of the infinite universe where they just can't go and take a nap and not be bothered by anyone?
Holy shit, Ian! You just sold me on the movie. Now that totally. If I had looked at it that way, I would have been like, "Oh, I'm on this guy's side. I am totally on this guy's side." I really, Damn kids, turn your music down.
Get off my planet. No. All right. So yeah, and I'm kind of glad Fowley's not here to join us for this conversation, because I think you and him would have gone around on For the Dark World, because he keeps trying to convert me. In fairness, I do need to watch that movie again. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about Venom: Let There Be Carnage, because I did not hate this movie. I liked just enough of it to be extremely annoyed that I didn't like more of it. And it's one of the few films that I think starts off atrociously, that gets moderately better, and then kind of excellent for like 10 minutes, and then slumps back into garbage territory. And Elliot, I hope you don't mind if we spoil this for you during our conversation.
No, please. I've already.
Okay.
Do you think that there is any actual like carnage within Let There Be Carnage?
Yeah, I mean, are you talking about the character or like destruction? Because there's plenty of destruction. Yeah, I mean, he's doing, like, there was a scene where, and just to set this whole thing up, Eddie Brock is back. He's, the intrepid but down on his luck, independent journalist living in San Francisco, and he's got this alien symbiote that's attached itself to him, and it eats chickens and brains and chocolate or something. Or no, it eats chocolate and brains, but it substitutes chicken brains when it can't get human brains, because he's not a murderer, or Eddie Brock isn't.
He's trying not to be, yeah.
Right. And then you've got Cletus Cassidy, who is played by Woody Harrelson, who is a death row inmate, convicted serial killer, who the people who made this movie did not at all study serial killers, because one of the things that makes serial killers is the ability to blend in with society, to appear normal enough to get close to people, to hack them into the bits and put them in the fridge. This guy is just like off his rocker, 100% of the time. The Mickey Knox character that he played in Natural Born Killers was closer to a realistic serial killer than whatever he's doing in this movie. And there's so much of this film that reminded me of Natural Born Killers that I just wanted to go back and watch that movie again. But anyway, there's this death row thing. Cletus Cassidy is obsessed with Eddie Brock, wants him to tell his story. I'll cut out some needless like subplot stuff, but ends up they're in the cell on death row. Cletus gets under Brock's skin, and then Cletus gets into Brock's skin. He bites him and then transfers some of that venom symbiote into his body, which becomes Carnage. And then, so now we've got two people with the symbiote tearing up San Francisco. Michelle Williams, Academy Award winner Michelle Williams. That's the thing. Like, everybody involved in this movie has either won or been nominated for an Oscar. And this is one of the few films where they present an ironic thesis statement in the middle of the film that just made me go, thank you. Why didn't anyone pick up on this during the script stage? At one point, Venom is swinging around and he's all pissed off about something, and he says, "We are wasting our talents." I'm like, yeah.
But that's Andy Serkis being ironic and recognizing the material and saying, boom, we're not going to take ourselves too seriously.
But here's the thing. I can almost appreciate a movie not taking itself seriously, but this thing becomes such a cartoon that, I mean, I'm not deep into the Venom lore, but I know he has been part of serious storylines where he has been a serious threat to Spider-Man and whoever. And when Carnage was first introduced, I had those issues. It was a serious threat, and it was like a big problem that had to be reckoned with, because you had this, serial killer who was, taking up the mantle of Venom, instead of just a bitter, newspaper reporter. But this movie, they've got there's a scene where Eddie Brock is trying to draw something that a vision that Venom is putting into his head, something he saw in Cletus Cassidy's, prison cell. It's a diagram that's going to lead back to the reformatory where he and his girlfriend were taken and separated 26 years ago or 25 years ago, whatever. But he's literally got this big thing of paper. He's scribbling it all fast and nope, that's not it. And whipping the paper off the desk, and he keeps scribbling it. At one point, I think he throws a pen or something like that and actually goes, like a cartoon sound effect in the middle of this scene. I can't get invested in this because nobody's taking this seriously on the level of making a comedy or a action comic book movie that happens to have humor in it. They just could never find the tone.
My question is with the movies, mind you, I have not seen either of the Venom movies. Okay. No interest. But as you said, there's a lot in the comic books that they can draw on that they've done that really actually pretty decent stories in the comics. How much from the comics have they actually pulled into the movies?
Very little from what I can tell. I think part of that is hampered by the whole, Spider-Man thing. I mean, for those who might not remember, because they blocked it out, Venom was actually in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film, Spider-Man 3, which I think came closer to capturing what it meant to have Venom in your movie than this did, even though that movie had its own problems with the goofy tone and too many villains and all that stuff. But, Topher Grace as the embittered, Eddie Brock and taking on the Venom symbiote, I thought that was effective enough that I wanted to see that taken as a solo, just Venom versus Spider-Man. Forget Sandman, forget all this other nonsense. But in this franchise, I actually liked the first Venom movie. And I remember having a spirited discussion with the roundtable after that film. Wasn't perfect, but I think part of the reason that I liked it was they introduced some of that weird comedy between Brock and the symbiote, but I don't remember it being as heavy as it is in this movie. It's like they said, oh, people liked the funny bits, so we're just going to make that 90% of the script instead of 20%. The rest of it, Riz Ahmed was the villain in that in that movie. That automatically gives it some kind of gravitas. And Venom was kind of scary because it was like this weird thing that was breaking out of labs and affecting people, and it was jumping into bodies as it's trying to make its way around our planet. I'm like, there's something here, but I said this at the time. I dug the first Venom movie. I have no need to see more, and this film seal the deal for me. I don't know if I'll see a Venom 3 unless, of course, we come back to talk about it. Speaking of which, I've been dominating this conversation. I've got 3 other people on the panel, one of which hasn't even seen the movie. Mark, Annie, help me out here.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that having that humor and really giving a deeper personality to Venom, where we see it in the books, where he is this quippy, very sarcastic, very sharp-witted creature, while at the same time posing a very viable threat where, Ian said he's jumping from body to body and he's taking over people, and he's, this kind of uncontrollable beast, is a lot of fun because that's what you expect, this very slick, oily alien persona. And I think that Serkis and Hardy, who co-wrote the sequel, looking at this, they kind of go, oh, that's what people like. That's what people want to see. What if we just made this a comedy? What if we took away the horror element that was in the first Venom? Because he's Tom Hardy's shaking and he's like throwing up and he's having seizures on the table when Venom is in and out of his body, and it's very for a young audience, it's very traumatizing. But I don't think they value having that thriller aspect. I think if you approached it with more of a horror aspect, where you could, if it was granted that rated R, where you could dig deeper into the gore and the blood and everything else, that would work tremendously. And I think that's what really chokes back up on Carnage in its success, is that we don't get to see how ruthless Woody Harrelson could be. And Woody, he's clearly having a great time. He's out of his mind crazy, and it's very haunting in his performance, but it's also overdone. I mean, this is the time to overdo it if you were to overdo any role. It appears like he's drunk half the time, which I kind of find hysterical. Because he's sloshing around and he's nuts and he's just speaking in riddles, and you're like, what is this guy saying? I'll have what he's having. Oh, by the way, here's Carnage.
Yeah. I like that. That's the title of the movie should have been Venom, by the way, here's Carnage.
When you talk about tone, I mean, I always think of, Annie, as you talk about the tone switch and how they decided to go with the comedy, I think of like the Evil Dead movies. You look at the first Evil Dead, then Evil Dead 2, which is kind of a hybrid horror comedy. Then you get the Army of Darkness, which is there's some horror elements, but there's really more comedy in it. Would you guys say like Venom Let There Be Carnage is more the Army of Darkness of the Venom series?
It's more of it's closer. It'd be closer to Evil Dead 2 than Army of Darkness, only because Evil Dead 2 worked the camp horror into it. It still was more horror, which this one isn't, but I wouldn't put this completely in Army of Darkness territory. But you make a great point. You're in my wheelhouse now for sure with horror, but Because, well, for me with Army of Darkness, especially, oh, nice.
I mean, I did write the Army of Darkness comic book, so yeah. So I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah,
I did not realize that.
Now I'm really, Ian. Why don't you tell me these things? You've got Andy, you've got Elliot. Why do you even have me on? You like slumming it with me when you're on my podcast. You got all
my
these
first real
people,
conversation with Elliot was last week. Okay, so.
and then you got this schmuck in his basement.
Elliot,
in the middle of Wisconsin.
what was the extent of stalking Ian before agreeing to come on?
Go. Did you stalk Ian or did he stalk you?
I think it was okay. Ian, should I tell everyone? No.
I'll just tell him. Fally message you saying Ian is going to talk to himself for an hour if we don't come on last week, please.
And I was like, oh shit, I've been there. I better help this dude out.
Now I'm really intimidated. I got 3 wonderful critic journalists, and you got this schmuck. But no, because I've got the Army of Darkness poster, the vinyl, the like 50-pound statue and everything.
Wait.
But you know, everybody talks about how they love Army of Darkness, and I find it chuckle. You know, that's beautiful.
So cool.
Oh, you're gonna make me weepy, Elliot. But everybody,
I think he's a fan of Army of Darkness. That's what I'm getting. Yeah.
Everybody talks about, you know, they like Ash, and I tell them, you know, and you ask them, oh yeah, well yeah, he's really that funny, quippy, sarcastic guy. I'm like, oh, so you like the Ash from Army of Darkness, because the Ash from Evil Dead is a dick. Okay, yeah. he's a clueless. He's completely, and in Evil Dead, he's working into the camp, but he's still kind of this arrogant guy. It's not till you get Army of Darkness that everybody loves. They found that groove. Army of Darkness, for those who are Marvel fans, is like Thor Ragnarok of the series of Evil Dead.
Yeah.
In that they completely turned around this character because they had this main character that people were still iffy on. You have this feeling like they were trying to do that with Venom. And for me, for Venom, Let There Be Carnage, I didn't mind this film at all, but I watch a lot of B horror. Okay. I watch a lot of B horror that has great ideas. A lot of them don't always come to fruition, or they don't fully explore them, and they're just kind of throwing some ideas out there. And that's what Let There Be Carnage did. I enjoyed this. I dug it, but at the same time, I fully look at it like this is a B horror superhero film, and it almost felt like we have this property, we set this up. Look what the MCU, you know, let's do this. And let's just give this script to Andy Serkis, and we'll see what he could do with it. When the whole real point of this film in the end, for those who are probably more serious fans than myself of this property and series and everything, is the end credit sequence. It literally felt like this entire movie, for the really diehard like MCU and Spider-Man fans in that, it really felt like this film, we have this property, we got to get from point A to point B, so let's just do this really quick, kind of blow through it and get to that end credit sequence. And it's sad because I've said this about modern films. Most modern films are going 2 hours long. And I know I talk a lot. I apologize. But, you know, and I usually like them pared down. This is a film where I actually wanted a little bit more time because I wanted to see a bit more exploration between the Cletus character and his girlfriend, who has the power. I wanted to see more of that relationship. You're absolutely right about potential. You have this talent and it gets wasted because they cut this film to 90 minutes and they removed the rated R. In all honesty, if there's any series that's not Deadpool that screams they should give it an R rating to let it breathe, it's the Venom series. You can see it wants to go there. You saw that in the first one, and you even see it in this when you get Carnage. I'm like, give me the blood. You know, Carnage has got his tentacles out and he's stabbing people, and I'm like sitting here going, where's the Peter Jackson Dead Alive gore fest?
No, here's where we're part ways on this. And I agree with you in spirit, Mark, but I don't want to see an R-rated version of this movie because it is too much of a comedy. I think if you've got Carnage out there ripping people to shreds and there's blood and gore everywhere, that sends a really weird mixed message because it's not Dead Alive. It's not, you know, the early Peter Jackson stuff where it is just comedy horror. This is something, this weird hybrid of existing in a comic book universe. So you've got this gravitas. We're dealing with people, and it's weird enough to have a scene where Eddie Brock and Naomi Harris are driving in their convertible, and there's a truck, I think, that honks at him or something. So Brock just casually has a Carnage tentacle reach out, grab the truck, and toss it over the side of the bridge.
Yeah.
It's
You mean Cletus? You mean
Cletus?
Yeah, Cletus. Sorry.
Yeah.
They're all the same person. Anyway, once the goo comes out, but
no, they're all the same person once the goop comes out.
Yes,
That's the title.
That's the poster slogan for part 3. But that scene or that moment, I was thinking, I don't know if I'm supposed to be laughing at that, because it's just an innocent person driving their pickup truck and they get thrown over the side of the bridge, probably dying horrifically, that the serial killer is doing. Even Natural Born Killers, a movie that this film does reference quite a bit. Oliver Stone, for as big and over the top as he was there, knew how to strike that balance, so you knew when you were supposed to be laughing and knew when you were supposed to be mortified. I don't think there was any kind of gray area there. Elliot,
did we see the same movie?
Yeah.
At what
I've
point
got it on
was supposed to
Laserdisc.
laugh in Natural Born? No, it's funny. You make a good point, though. I know Oliver Stone did intend for that to be that so satirical. It's funny. In seriousness, the first time I saw Natural Born Killers, I knew that there were some things that were supposed to be funny, and I didn't think were funny. It wasn't until I saw it again, I want to say like 10 years later, I went, "Oh, now I get the joke." Just like True Lies, a lot of people don't really realize that was James Cameron trying to do a comedy, and and a lot of the jokes really thud with it, but it's him. So to your point, you're right about that, and that's also. But Oliver Stone is kind of he's like a director. Andy Serkis is still learning. He's an actor becoming a director. He does this movie because there's so much mocap in it. He's very familiar with the technology, how it's going to work, how it's going to come across on screen. He knows how to work with the actors who have to deal with all that. Maybe giving him a few more features, and he'll be able to strike that balance at that point to really get the material to all drive together.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to say flat out, I had no problem with the direction of this movie. It was all in the screenplay and the editing. Yeah, and and even the performances, which I guess are at some point steered by the director. But what we talked about earlier with Tom Hardy being involved in writing the screenplay, this does feel much like a vanity project. Mike Crowley, who's not here, but I read his review, made an astute point that this is one of those movies that very much feels like the people making it had an amazing, fun time, but they didn't necessarily take into account how this would react with people watching it who weren't involved in it. Tom Hardy, I can tell, is, he's known for playing serious, heavy, villainous, monstrous characters. And he's like, I'll just unwind. I'll play this goofy San Francisco guy. And, I'm having conversations with myself, and I'm going to do this outrageous monster accent, because people were so impressed that, oh my God, that was Tom Hardy doing Venom's voice all along. They're just, again, they amp everything up to 11 here. My concern with that stinger at the end credits, and we'll just ruin it for you, Elliot.
I've heard about it, so don't worry about it.
Okay, so essentially, and this is what they did at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. They introduced the wider MCU/multiverse with a freaking TV show with Jonah Jameson announcing the news, saying Spider-Man's a menace, and you've got Venom/Carnage watching the TV in like a Mexican hotel room or something like that.
They're on the beach. He wanted to go to the beach.
He wanted to go to the beach and had the sand in his toes, and then they go to the cabana later. So the end credit sequence is him laid in bed. Before the credits start rolling is when they're on the beach, because Venom wanted to.
This is where they make up. This is
where
they
okay,
exactly.
Mark and Annie, this is not what we talk about when we talk about important context.
This is how they fix their relationship issues. They go to Mexico.
Because they're going to be fighting like cats and dogs in the next movie.
I don't know. As soon as the camera cuts, I can't tell you what happens between the behind closed doors.
Right. I mean, they're together, so who knows what could happen? I mean,
Ian. But do you want to go to Mexico so we can resolve our issues?
I would love to go to Mexico so that we can resolve all relationship issues. Exactly. That's a brilliant idea. Because who else did that? San Francisco renowned journalist Eddie Brock.
Yeah, I mean,
for being a down on the luck journalist, he had an amazing apartment.
He's got a weird fucking accent. I'm sorry.
He does.
Wait, hold on. This just got right by me. Wait, Eddie Brock lives in San Francisco?
Yeah.
Yes.
Even wears flowers in his hair.
All of Venom takes place in
Did the Brooklyn accent throw you off from like a coastal difference?
Thank you.
He could have moved there.
Okay, well, that would explain the absence of Spider-Man. Okay.
Well, no. Here's the thing.
He's not in New York. He can't be, because otherwise you got to introduce Spider-Man, because this is still part of the MCU. So as long as you put him in,
tasty.
He does.
Yeah, I would drink me up some Tom Hardy.
Although this is a multiverse, so he's in a different shard where there doesn't happen to have a Spider-Man. So.
A different shard, yes, I agree. No, but here's the thing, and this is what I want to get at with the stinger, the whole New York thing, because let's rewind. I'll come back to this in a second, but in the fight with Carnage versus Venom in the church, in the big climax, Carnage shows himself, the big red monster beastie thing, and his girlfriend is there. I can't remember her name. Annie, maybe you know.
Francis, yeah.
Francis Drake? No.
She was Screech?
Yes.
Screech.
Yes.
Yeah.
That explains why they kept playing the Saved by the Bell theme song in the background.
That's why the blood was dripping down her nose. She had the suspenders on, the funky button up, the whole thing.
I think that should be the name of a band, the Funky Button Up. Anyhow.
There you go.
Venom, at one point, Eddie is going to confront Carnage and save the world, but then Venom chickens out and he says, "Oh no, it's a red one." Kind of implying that even though this symbiote came from Venom, I was like, okay, he's been around a lot, he's traveled galaxies, maybe there's red versions of this alien creature, but that doesn't really come to anything, because in the end, Carnage or Venom just kind of eats Carnage and reabsorbs him back into his body. So I don't know if it was, the whole idea was if someone eats the Venom symbiote out of someone else's flesh, that turns them red and that makes them more dangerous, or was this another species? Again, it's kind of like what Mark's saying. If they had a little bit more time to expound on the movie and not waste it on silly crap like, sound effects while you're drawing, cartoons on a paper, we might have found something out. But let's get back to that post-credit scene. J. Jonah Jameson is talking about Spider-Man's a menace, and you see Tom Holland looking all clueless on the TV. Venom goes up to the TV set and he says, "Oh my God, I had it and I lost it." But he said something like, "I know that guy," or no, he says, "that guy," as if there's some kind of familiarity, which leads me to wonder, and I don't know how the hell they would work or how they would write this, but was Eddie Brock from New York and moved to San Francisco? Did he or the Venom symbiote at some point have an interaction with Tom Holland? It would make no sense in this continuity unless we're talking multiverse stuff that hasn't been explained. But there definitely was this idea that Venom was very interested in Spider-Man for whatever reason.
Well, they immediately set up the multiverse. I mean, you kind of skip past before what Annie was alluding to. They make up. Andy, you're absolutely right about the relationship part with this between Eddie Brock and Venom. I didn't mind that angle at all, but when I saw that you had mentioned it before I saw the film, I'm like, okay, yeah, I see. You joked about it being a rom-com. I'm like, you're not far off. It's a bro-com, but you're missing the part at the beginning where Venom was about to actually share. They've made up so much to where he finally feels comfortable showing Eddie Brock, who they've established is dumb, which goes back to your drawing scene, which I'll and these folks can tell me if I'm completely way off. But first, he's just about to open up the universe when you get the weird effect, Venom's yelling, "That wasn't me." But Venom, just by the tone and the way he's delivering it, he knows what just happened with him jumping into another verse where there's Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson, because he just dropped earlier that he knows a lot.
Yeah, they established he's been around for 80 billion years and he's been hopping around the universe and stuff. Yeah,
which goes back to the drawing thing. The reason he was going through the drawing things, he wasn't getting the drawing right. Every drawing he was coming up with, Eddie was so freaking clueless he couldn't deduce what Venom was trying to tell him, because they're sharing a brain. So every time he's drawing the drawing, and Eddie Brock would just stare there and kind of drool on it, he'd go, "No, and he's throwing it. It's not that he was getting the drawing wrong necessarily. It's just that he's attached to Eddie Brock, who they've established, at least in this one, even more so than the first one. How this guy's actually a journalist, I'm not exactly sure. I'm more of a journalist than this guy is. Okay. I mean, because the way they establish him, he stumbles on things more than he actually comes to a conclusion on.
Yeah, and I think there was more sleuthing for sure in the first movie, but again, when we're talking about sharing the same brain, what that means, that's essentially a distinction without a difference, because the movie doesn't care about that difference.
Oh, yeah.
It just wants to have a moment where Eddie's frantically drawing stuff and having to throw out the paper. I mean, that's all that is. And as far as the wave goes, I understand. This is sort of a problem that I had with the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer as well. And maybe they'll explain all of this in the movie. But when Dr. Octopus comes out of that, freeway or whatever, and he says, "Hello, Peter," he knows the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man from, the
seen the trailer, so I don't want to be spoiled. Thank you.
And you've not heard about this?
Oh, I've heard about it. I haven't heard about it.
Okay, yeah. Well, right, but so I'm not.
I've written about him either, but I haven't seen the trailer, so I don't know how they interact.
They don't.
Okay, yeah. Essentially, it's nothing more than I've said. He just and the way it's cut, it's hard to tell that it may be a completely different context in the movie. But Doc Ock comes up out of this, pit or whatever.
I've seen the claw come down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but you see Alfred Molina, Doc Ock says, "Hello, Peter." So it's intimated that he's seeing Spider-Man. Now it's possible because Tobey Maguire and not Jake Gyllenhaal, Andrew Garfield are rumored, they're going to be in the movie in some capacity. So it's possible that when he says "Hello, Peter," he's looking at Tobey Maguire in the Spider-Man costume. But it's also possible, and possibly more likely because of other things we see in that trailer, that he's looking at Tom Holland. My question is, how does he know that he's talking to Peter Parker and not just some other dude in the Spider-Man outfit? Because last time he saw Peter Parker, he looked like Tobey Maguire. So in this movie, Venom,
he's got a mask on. He sees Spider-Man. If he's not too aware that he actually jumped universes, as far as he knows,
we don't.
Tobey Maguire.
Again, we don't know. And given our history with the Sony Spider-Man, the chances of him actually having the mask on is like 7%.
Okay.
So at the end of Venom, when Venom says, "I know that guy," or that guy, he's looking at Tom Holland as Spider-Man. So unless he's been to an alternate reality universe where Tom Holland is also Spider-Man, it just brings up a question like, how does he know this at all? Again, I'm open to hearing about this in another probably Spider-Man movie, but I don't know if I want to see this. I don't want to see Spider-Man Tom Holland go up against this Eddie Brock, because I feel like those tones aren't going to mesh.
I was just going to ask you. I was just about to ask you as soon as you were finished with your
my rambling. Yes, thank you for indulging me.
Your completed thought. I was going to ask because I know that they're very tonally misaligned, and Tom Holland is so great at playing 15 years old, but that's a totally different perspective than this gritty alternative universe that has been created for Eddie Brock and Venom, and it's very like, even though the film itself is shot like a very muted tone and the color palette does not align, bringing those two aesthetics and crossing over, it feels very shoehorned. It feels very forced, and this is something that Tom Hardy has been laboring for. This is his thing. This is the tour de force that he wants to see happen for his interpretation of Eddie Brock, crossing over with whoever is the current Spider-Man. And I don't know if it fits. I don't know if it's because I don't hear a lot of fan demand for it after Topher Grace. I don't think that people have an interest in seeing these universes overlap. But again, like you were saying, that Venom, THERE BE CARNAGE feels like a filmmaker's inside joke. It feels like it's a fun movie, but it feels like the filmmaker's inside joke where they said, "Hey, you really want to do this? Have at it." And they go, "Yeah, this is going to be so much fun for me."
Yes.
Is that going to be? Is it going to be oversaturated? Is it going to be too much? Is it going to be distracting? Is it going to take away from the purpose of having this movie?
It depends. because I don't think these are going to mesh. If it depends on which studio and which director, whoever is the visionary behind this mashup, and which franchise it falls into. Is it going to be Venom 3 or is it going to be Spider-Man 4 or some combination thereof? If the Venom sensibility wins, I am not at all interested. If the Spider-Man MCU sensibility wins, I'll be more interested, because especially as we've moved on from the Joss Whedon years, and with the exception of, What If, which we talked about, the humor in the Marvel movies has been not, completely eradicated, but it's at least been pushed to the back in movies where it doesn't necessarily fit. Doctor Strange is a good, example. That's more, of a serious film that has some comedic elements in it. Whereas Thor: The Dark World is, we know going in that that's a comic book, movie. It's fun. It's science fiction, kind of adventure, space traveler, weird stuff. But I feel like if Eddie Brock went into the MCU and had to contend with Peter Parker, more to the point, Peter Parker had to contend with him, I could see that being the darker, heavier version of the Venom story that we've been talking about, kind of wanting to see based more on the comic books. You would have to sort of forget the stuff from Venom Part 1 and 2, but I'm happy to do that. I don't care what the continuity is, because as we established at the end of this Venom thing, they just had this alternate reality wave, so maybe part of the alternate reality is things are more serious when they meet up. But if it's like Peter Parker is going to, take a class trip to San Francisco and run into Eddie Brock and the Venom symbiote, no, thank you.
That's what we did with Far From Home. We took a trip to run into Jake Gyllenhaal.
It doesn't have to be
hanging out in Venice.
It doesn't have to be a trip. It could be Eddie Brock and Venom fly to New York and encounter Peter Parker. Which, if the Venom tone wins out, it's going to be a weird comedy. If the MCU Spider-Man tone wins out, I think that's going to be more what I want to see.
I don't know. I don't think we need it right now. I think we need
to
focus on other properties.
Completely superfluous. I agree, but it seems like someone's moving on this train, with Venom 2 being such a hit. Like, that train has officially left the station. I guarantee they're talking about it right now.
Oh, it's Tom Hardy saying, "Do it, send it."
Yeah, do it.
No, you don't. Adam, while I understand the point of view you guys are presenting, fandom is demanding it right now. The fact that people are going to see this movie, which many folks are going, I don't want to see Venom 2. I really don't. I didn't even like the first one, but I heard about this stinger at the end, and it's talking about it coming together with the MCU. I've got to be there to see that. It was kind of like when I went to see The Wolverine, all right? And I did not like that movie at all until you got to the very end and you saw Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, and I was like, this is why I needed to see this film. So there is a desire to bring these universes together. As far as tone goes, I agree. The tone can be weird and it might not work, but we already saw the Russos do that by bringing the Guardians of the Galaxy, which was a really goofy, over-the-top tone, and they brought them into a serious movie like Infinity War. And
or even Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I think, they struck that balance. But the Russo brothers are not writing the Venom movies. And thank you for bringing up the Guardians films with James Gunn, and also what they did with the Infinity War films, because there is a way to do it. It's just that the way that they're doing it in the Venom series is not the way to do it. It takes a very special kind of talent to pull it off. But yeah, that's the thing is, again, when Cletus and Shriek are going on their rampage, I thought that was kind of, fun, and you get more into the horror elements. Like, there's the head of the institute that's, keeping Shriek in prison in that vault. She gets dispatched, pretty horrifically, and there's no indication that that's supposed to be funny. Plus the way that, you see the kind of Carnage tentacle strangulate her and hang her. And then also, like, a second later, Cletus Cassidy kind of walks in through a door, and you see the tentacle kind of like whip back from the front. It's almost like an optical illusion. There's some cool stuff going on in this movie visually. And again, I think Serkis does a really good job with the direction in this film, and even managing the special effects and all that. It's just, I really can't stand the screenplay and what like Michelle Williams. I felt so, I've loved Michelle Williams since the Dawson's Creek days. She just looked so clueless. It's almost like asking, well, no, that's a bad example. Why can't I think of her name? Chase Meridian from Batman Forever. Nicole Kidman. It's like asking Nicole Kidman now to be in a comic book movie. I think she'd be completely clueless. Like, what am I doing here? And that's the vibe I got from her in this film.
Why'd you have to bring that movie up?
Hey, riddle me this. What's wrong with that movie? Sorry.
I liked it. I'm sorry. I mean, come on, dude. I still liked it better than Bat v Superman.
Hey, what is that movie called? BVS. What's that last word?
Donna Justice.
Yes.
Donna.
I thought it was
Donna
Martha.
Justice. Martha Justice. All right. I know we've kind of jumped all around here, and I don't want to keep us here all night because we could talk about the flaws of Venom 2 and maybe even some of the good points. But is there anything from the folks who have seen it that I'm missing that we should talk about before we go?
It's not. Here's the thing. It's very watchable. I mean, some of the people that I've seen come out. I know. It's a horrible thing to say about a film.
That's a great tagline. It's very watchable.
Hey,
some of the people I've seen come out.
You know what it is? It's a movie.
It's a movie.
I've watched.
Hey, the first Venom? We got more where that came from.
That should be Venom 3.
There you go. It's a movie.
Nobody asked.
More carnage.
It's a movie. Tom Hardy.
If you liked the first Venom, you'll watch this one.
I've watched Glenn Danzig's Veronica, and I've watched Glenn Danzig's Cowboy Death in the House of Vampires. Okay, I can tell you, Venom, Let There Be Carnage is by far not one of the worst things ever released in cinema. Okay, but it's watchable. It's a middle tier film. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And this is the one thing I was disappointed with, even with the first one. Now, I'm not a big Marvel fan. I'm not too familiar with Venom, but just watching the story and the character of Venom in the first one and in this one, it so screams, one, that it's R-rated, and two, I don't know if it's the MCU going, you can't go too serious with the horror elements with it because we still want this either eventually in their MCU or whatnot. This really could have been its own dark entity where they could have worked a lot of humor, but also darker moments, stuff that you're looking for, Ian, for the little more serious stuff. This definitely has that potential to go there with it, especially with Venom wanting to eat people's heads. I mean, I loved that part, and I wanted to see more of that. I know I'm a sick person, but No,
but Mark, to get to your point, though, they already did the disturbing version of a Spider-Man movie. That's Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 from 2004. The operating table scene with Doc Ock when his tentacles come to life and kill everybody in the room. That took me out of the movie when I was watching him. Like, this is Sam Raimi going back to his Evil Dead roots in the middle of this comic book movie. I'm not quite on that wavelength, but I appreciate it more now, almost 20 years later. But
that's the expectation for Multiverse Madness.
Right.
That's what I want to see there.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I don't know as far as the tone what we're going to see in the future. I just know that from what I saw of this movie, you're right, Mark. It is a movie that they don't take seriously, but it's also a movie that I don't feel like they take Venom seriously.
Right. No, they don't.
I feel kind of like when Joel Schumacher was directing his Batman sequels, we just kind of talked about. I remember on the commentaries, I think I brought this up. Schumacher was talking about directing certain scenes, and he was like, "Come on, people, it's a comic book. It's a comic book." Kind of like saying, "Go bigger, louder, more obnoxious," like because that's what he thinks that comic books are, and some of them are, but mostly the reason it's been an enduring medium is because there are people who take it seriously and are able to expand the art form. And Venom: Let There Be Carnage, I'm sad to report, does not.
And this is where I'm worried about them talking about working Deadpool into the regular MCU. I don't want that. I don't want that because as much as they say, oh yeah, we'll let him whatever, because there were rumors for a while that he would take place and make cameos like they had Stan Lee. And I'm like, that character does not fit into the MCU. This Venom, in all honesty, the Venom character, from what I know of it, and again, I may be misspeaking about him, but just from the few comics I've read and what my son, who's a huge Spider-Man fan, has told me about it, is that Venom belonged in kind of his own universe and not in the MCU either. for what you should justifiably be able to do with this character and what to give him respect or give him some, what you're talking about. Take him more seriously. That character, in order to take it more seriously, it'd be like putting, Elliot, you mentioned it perfectly, putting Spawn, it'd be like putting Spawn in the MCU in many ways. Great character, you put him in what the MCU is, that well balanced now, especially with Guardians and that, of dark but yet also humor. It won't work in there because the characters, you're going to go either one way too far or the other way too far. And in Venom, Let There Be Carnage, they did go the other way too far with the Venom character to where it's way more comedic than the first one. And you're right, the deaths and stuff that you have, there's opportunity for them to have more weight to them, but they take the more comedic spin to it because, this is what they want. And it feels like they took it and went that way. And whether or not it's Sony's call or the MCU going, we'd like to get him in here because fans are calling for him. So you got to lighten him up.
Maybe. But yeah, I don't feel like this is a movie that this is going to sound terrible. It feels like a movie that's made for a general audience who doesn't care what they watch. It's just they're going to go see the new comic book movie, as opposed to like comic book fans who have kept DC and Marvel, like made them these huge brands and the main staple of blockbuster movies for the last several decade plus. I want movies that are made for like real comic book fans, people who are invested and want to go to movies to see the live action versions of what has caused them to be fans. I know, I'm a dreamer. I've always been a dreamer.
I appreciate that, Ian. That's a wonderful sentiment. But if comic book movies were only made for comic book fans, they wouldn't make money. You got to make them for general audiences. The reason Iron Man became a huge breakout is because they made it because people who had never read an Iron Man comic could go see it.
Well, but no, I think there's a balance, because I think you can be a fan of Iron Man comics and still appreciate what they did in the Iron Man films. I don't feel like I don't think you can be a fan of the Venom character and recognize anything but the aesthetics in what they've done in these two Venom movies.
Yeah, but look what makes Venom popular in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
He's a symbiote that eats people. I mean, let's be honest. That's there's nothing really deep about the character. After a while, it's like, oh, he's a symbiote. He can go crazy. Oh, let's do a whole crossover, King of Night or whatever the fudge they want to call it. And
Queen in Black.
King in Black. Thank you.
King in Black.
And it's like and it'll sell 10,000 copies, right?
Right, but that's
a good run. It was a good run.
Well,
it is a good run, but
here's the
thing. 10,000 people going to see a Venom movie is not going to make the Venom movie successful. It's going to be a few million people. That's
right. But here's the thing. I'm not suggesting you have to make a comic book movie that's so dense and reverential to the source material that general audiences won't get it. I'm saying you can make a comic movie, especially because at this point you slap Marvel on something. Even the Eternals is going to make a lot of money because of the Marvel branding. It's going to get at least a big opening weekend because people are going to be curious: is this an art house movie? Is it any good? And how does it connect to everything else and move the universe forward? So with that in mind, why not make a really smart comic book movie that does something with Venom that no one's ever done before? Make them complex and interesting and something that you could build an entire franchise out of. And see if audiences will take to it. I mean, there are talented people out there that can do that.
That's Venom 3. Venom 3. The tagline would be, "This time he's intelligent."
And on that note, I am going to dub you the king of wishful thinking, and I'm just going to say, I think we're done talking about Venom: Let There Be Carnage, and This conversation was longer and more entertaining than I thought it would be. You've definitely lifted me out of my funk, and I've enjoyed talking about this, even with someone who hasn't seen the movie yet somehow completely understands the spirit of it. Congratulations, Elliot.
I got a trip to Mexico with Annie out of this, so I'm not going to complain.
Hey, when do you want to leave? When do you want to go?
I'm buying the tickets. You tell me when you want.
Well, Annie, you got classes, so
I'll revoke my restraining order.
I'll wait for you. I've waited this long.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna end the stream. You guys can hang out if you want, but no. But thank you so much for hanging out and talking Venom. Let There Be Carnage. I am, as always, Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We've got Elliot Serrano of the Army of Darkness comics. By the way, where can people like read those? Are there good collections out there that they can like? What's a good jumping on point for your run?
If, by the way, it's available right now on Comixology Unlimited. So if you have a Comixology Unlimited account, you can read my entire run on there, including the two miniseries, and the one shot that I wrote.
All right, what are they called?
The two collections are first the Army of Darkness, Hail to the Queen, and then the second, I forgot what the second collection is called, but you want to look for the cool cover of Ash dressed in 1920s gangster attire with a Tommy gun in one hand and a chainsaw in the other.
Awesome.
Because I had Ash go back to Chicago in the Roaring 20s.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
I'm going to order that tonight. So yeah, and Elliot Serrano, you also do a James Bond podcast called Shaken Not Heard. Annie Banks of Chuckload of Comics and Giant Freaking Robot, and the guy who likes BVS, Donna Justice. Mark Krawczyk of the Spoiler Room and Special Mark Productions. Thanks everyone for hanging out again. This is the last you'll see of us for a while as far as Wednesday nights go, because we don't have any like comic stuff to talk about really. But are there any movies or anything coming out before Hawkeye in November? I don't even know when Eternals comes out.
November.
Is that before Hawkeye?
Let me check. Hold on. While we're on the air, let me check.
Hawkeye's supposed to be for Christmas, so in December.
Oh, you know what? You might be right.
Hawkeye's December.
I thought it was coming out at the end of November.
Wasn't it?
I'm sorry, November 5th.
No.
Is when
Eternals.
Eternals, yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, 2.5 weeks later-ish, Hawkeye will be around November 24th.
That's what I thought, because I know I'm getting the collection, the new Hawkeye reprints they're coming out with.
Did they
November.
reprint My Life as a Weapon?
It's the entire. I'm blanking on the name. The writer, Matt Fraction.
David.
Oh my god, I love him. Okay,
it's like a $40 omnibus of, I guess, his entire run. That's coming out.
Every penny. That's
I've heard.
Best stuff.
It is amazing. Like it is.
And that's gonna be my homework. I'm excited to read it ahead of Hawkeye because I'm excited about that show.
Please do. You're gonna really need that context.
I'm gonna throw this out there for people so people will know. The Pizza Dog issue that features Pizza Dog, which was all through the idea, through the point of view of the dog, where the dog doesn't talk. It's all artwork. I pitched that story idea to DC Comics Crypto. I pitched it, and they told me it would never work. And I was like, oh, well, what do you know? Matt Fraction did it with Pizza Dog, and look at that. I think he won an Eisner with that. So
was Matt Fraction was he like an executive assistant in the room taking down notes during that pitch meeting?
No.
He's like, this will never work at DC.
It's like, I say, we writers, a lot of times we come up with parallel ideas. So I'm sitting there going, man, I wanted to do this to crypto. I pitched it a long time ago. I was told it wouldn't work. And then Matt Fraction did, and I don't know Matt Fraction. I've never spoken with him. He came up with the idea on his own, and telling you, it's wonderful. Read it. You're going to love it. It's great.
I'm going to. I'm very excited, especially that Pizza OV issue that you're talking about with the dog. Sorry, it was horrible. Yeah, don't condescend to me and don't lie. It's not. It's really unbecoming of a true journalist. I appreciate you humoring me. Anyway. All right, gang. Thanks again. We'll talk. It's only a few weeks then for talking Eternals, so I'll be excited to come back and talk about with all of you if you deign to return to the live streams with me. So thanks everyone. Have a great night. And again, we're gonna say, even though this is not really a movie worthy of the Stan Lee Excelsior, I don't think, I'm just gonna say it. Excelsior.